Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. The evening air along the Carolina coast in 1714 carried a heavy mix of salt and smoke, the kind that clings to your skin and whispers of secrets best left unspoken. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this house, not in this conversation, and certainly not standing across from my husband's powerful employer, a man whose reputation was as commanding as the tide itself. He looked at me with a steadiness that unsettled my breath, and when he finally spoke, the words he chose were unlike anything I had ever expected. But before I tell you what he said, you should know that this story stretches beyond one night. It reaches back to the age of pirates, when whispers of lost treasure and vanished prisoners haunted every tavern along this rugged coastline. In those days, a pirate captain had disappeared into thin air with 42 prisoners, leaving nothing but speculation and the lingering fear of betrayal. Some said he was swallowed by the sea. Others claimed he struck a secret bargain that changed the course of history. And now, centuries later, the echoes of that mystery were returning to my life in the most personal, dangerous way. My husband had worked tirelessly to win favor under his boss, a man who carried influence in ways most people only whispered about. He wasn't just a figure of authority. He was a man who seemed to hold the weight of unspoken histories in his gaze. When he asked to speak with me privately, I thought it was a matter of courtesy, perhaps a word of thanks. Instead, what followed was something that made my heart pound so fast I could hear it in my ears. His voice was calm, but his words revealed more than I was prepared to handle. The flicker of lantern light caught the angles of his face, and in that glow, I saw both danger and intrigue. He began weaving a story, not as a simple tale of the past, but as if it were a warning, a confession, or maybe even a temptation. He spoke of a pirate who had once docked in these very waters, a man who commanded fear and loyalty in equal measure. That captain had been ruthless but clever, admired by his crew and despised by his enemies. He had vanished with prisoners who were never found, and the disappearance left a wound on the coast, one that never fully healed. At first, I thought his story was only history, the kind of tale men tell to impress women with shadows and legends. But then he leaned closer, lowering his voice as though the walls themselves might betray him. His words shifted from a tale of pirates to something far more unsettling. He suggested that the truth behind that captain's disappearance was not locked away in the past. It was tied to choices being made in the present, choices that involved my husband, and perhaps even me. My pulse quickened as I realized this wasn't just a casual story. This was a test, maybe even a trap. His eyes never left mine, as though he was searching for a reaction, measuring whether I understood the weight of what he was sharing. And in that moment, I found myself caught between loyalty to my husband and an inexplicable pull toward the mystery unfolding before me. Why me? Why tell me of all people? Was it trust? Was it manipulation? Or was it something more dangerous, something he wasn't saying outright? The way he stood so close, the way his voice wrapped around each word, left me unsettled in ways I could not name. There was no map for where this conversation was leading, only the sharp awareness that one wrong move could change everything. Outside, the sea roared against the shore as if echoing my own restless thoughts. I wanted to ask questions, to demand clarity, but instead I stood frozen, caught between fear and fascination. He spoke of loyalty, betrayal, and choices that had to be made when the tide turned. His tone made it clear that whatever was coming would not just shape the future of my husband's position. It would shape my life too. And then, just as quickly as he had drawn me into his web of words, he stopped. His silence was heavy, intentional, as though he knew I was desperate for more. He smiled faintly, almost like he had set something in motion, and then he left me standing there, breathless and confused. Now I'm left asking myself, what would you have done if someone with that much power, with that much knowledge of hidden histories, pulled you into a secret like this? Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have risked everything to find out the truth? Tell me in the comments, do you believe the pirate captain really vanished? Or was there a secret pact that kept him alive? Would you trust a man who tells you stories like this? Or would you run before the storm breaks? Your thoughts might be closer to the truth than you realize. Because what he told me that night was only the beginning. And what he did next left me stunned. The next morning, the Carolina sun rose sluggishly over the misty coast, painting everything in muted golds and grays. I couldn't shake the words my husband's boss had whispered the night before. They echoed in my mind with a rhythm that made my chest ache, half fear, half curiosity. Even as my husband moved through his morning routine, humming softly, laughing at some private joke, I felt a distance between us. An invisible line drawn by secrets I could not yet share. I tried to convince myself it was only a story, a dramatization meant to impress or unsettle. Yet, there was something in the way he described that pirate captain, in the way he hinted at choices and betrayals that felt dangerously real. The coast had a history of hiding dark truths, and I had always believed the stories were just legends. But now, it seemed history had a way of creeping back into the present. Later that day, as I wandered the small streets near the harbor, the smell of salt and tar mingled with the hum of ships preparing for the next voyage. Fishermen shouted their wares, and children played near the edge of the docks, their laughter an uneasy counterpoint to the tension in my chest. I kept thinking about the 42 prisoners the pirate captain had vanished with, wondering who they were and what had become of them. Had they been betrayed, or had they found freedom in some hidden cove? The more I pondered, the more I sensed a connection between those long-lost souls and the story I had been pulled into. My husband seemed unaware of my inner turmoil, or perhaps he noticed but chose to ignore it. There was a softness in his eyes, an innocent charm that made it impossible to tell him about the encounter without shattering the trust we had built. And yet, the pull toward the mystery was almost magnetic. I felt caught between two worlds, one of love and comfort, and one of danger and intrigue. It was an impossible balancing act, and the tension made every glance, every casual touch, feel charged with a hidden meaning. That evening, I found myself near the edge of the cliffs overlooking the ocean. The waves crashed with a steady rhythm, as if reminding me that the world was larger and more dangerous than my small, familiar life. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine the pirate captain and his prisoners. 42 souls swept into the unknown. A shiver ran down my spine, not just from the cold, but from the realization that the stories of the past were entwined with my own fate in ways I could not yet understand. Suddenly, a shadow fell across my path. I turned to see my husband's boss approaching, his steps deliberate, quiet, as if he had been following me all along. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken rule that neither of us would speak first. He stopped a few paces away, letting the wind play with his coat, the lantern light from the nearby tavern reflecting faintly on his face. I wanted to look away, to pretend I hadn't noticed, but something inside me held me still. "I see you've been thinking about last night," he said quietly, almost as if testing my honesty. His eyes, sharp yet unreadable, seemed to search for some reaction. I swallowed hard, unsure if I should speak or remain silent. There was something about the way he looked at me that made the world feel smaller, more immediate, as if all decisions, all secrets, and all dangers were converging in this single moment. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My hands felt clammy, and my heart raced in a rhythm I couldn't control. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tilted his head toward the horizon, where the sky met the sea in a hazy, uncertain line. "Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried," he said finally. "Sometimes it reaches out and touches the lives of those who least expect it. And sometimes," he added, his gaze turning toward me, "it chooses someone who is brave enough to face it." I wanted to ask what he meant, but my throat went dry. His words were both an invitation and a warning. I realized then that the mystery of the pirate captain, the vanished prisoners, and the choices hinted at the night before were not just stories. They were threads of a larger tapestry, and somehow I had been woven into it. As he stepped back, leaving me alone on the cliffs, the wind seemed to carry a question I couldn't answer. Would I follow the path of secrets and danger, or would I stay in the safety of the life I knew? And even as I pondered, I couldn't deny the subtle, complicated attraction I felt toward the man who had spoken such words. The way his presence stirred something forbidden and thrilling inside me. I turned to look at the ocean again, the horizon blurred by mist, my mind swirling with questions. What would the next encounter bring? Would the truth about the pirate captain finally reveal itself, or would it drag me further into uncertainty and desire? And most importantly, could I trust the man who had drawn me into this web, or was he the very danger I had to fear? The next few days were a delicate balancing act, and each encounter felt like walking on a knife's edge. I found myself constantly replaying the words my husband's boss had whispered, trying to make sense of them while hiding the tremor they left in my chest. Every glance from him seemed purposeful, every casual remark loaded with hidden meaning, and I couldn't tell if it was caution, curiosity, or something far more dangerous. At home, my husband remained blissfully unaware, or perhaps he sensed something but chose silence. He laughed easily, pressed kisses to my forehead, and spoke of simple, mundane matters. The contrast between his warmth and the tension I felt elsewhere made the secret gnaw at me even more. It wasn't just the story of the pirate captain or the vanished prisoners that lingered in my mind. It was the way his boss's presence seemed to rewrite the rules of the world I thought I knew. One afternoon, I found myself in the harbor market, trying to lose myself in the rhythm of daily life. Merchants shouted over the cries of gulls, the scent of salt fish mingled with tar, and children darted between carts. And yet, even here I could feel eyes on me, those steady, measuring eyes. My heart skipped as I noticed him standing near the edge of the dock, pretending to examine barrels of spices. When our gazes met, a shiver ran down my spine. There was something unspoken, a pull I couldn't resist yet didn't fully trust. I wondered what motivated him. Was he testing my courage, my loyalty, or something more personal? The tension between us was undeniable, and I could feel it in every encounter. Subtle touches that lingered a moment too long, words that hinted at shared secrets. It was a strange, dangerous intimacy that left me breathless and wary at the same time. I couldn't tell if I was drawn to him because of the mystery or despite it. Meanwhile, the shadow of the pirate captain's story kept resurfacing. I overheard whispers at the tavern about old maps, hidden treasures, and families still haunted by vanished sailors. Some suggested that the captain had kept prisoners for reasons no one could guess: revenge, loyalty, or greed. Each rumor pulled me deeper into the mystery, and I started to see connections where there might have been none. Could the captain's choices somehow mirror the decisions we were being asked to make today? Was history repeating itself, and were we being caught in its current? Even at home, I couldn't escape the pull of the story. I found myself staring at my husband across the table, noticing small details I had never observed before: the way he furrowed his brow when thinking, the slight hesitation in his laughter, the subtle way his hand reached for mine when he thought I wasn't looking. The more I tried to maintain normalcy, the more fragile our world felt. Every conversation carried an undercurrent of unspoken tension. Every glance held the possibility of revelation or disaster. I realized I wasn't the only one caught in the web of uncertainty. My husband's boss seemed equally invested in drawing out the truth, testing reactions, seeing what I would risk to uncover it. It was a game of shadows and half-truths, a dance where every move mattered and the stakes were higher than I could have imagined. I wondered how far I was willing to go, and I started to feel the weight of choices pressing against me like the tide against the cliffs. As I walked back along the shoreline, the sun dipping toward the horizon, I couldn't help but question my own feelings. Was the attraction I felt toward him a dangerous curiosity, or something deeper that could alter everything? Would I dare to follow the thread of secrets he had offered me, even if it meant risking my marriage, my safety, or my heart? What would you do in my place? Would you confront the truth, or stay in the comfort of what you know? Comment below. Tell me which character you trust, or which choices you think will change everything. The air that night carried a heavier chill than usual, and the Carolina coast seemed darker, as if the sea itself held its breath. I walked along the edge of the docks, lanterns flickering against the dark waves, my thoughts a storm of worry, anticipation, and a dangerous curiosity I could no longer ignore. Each step brought me closer to the unknown, and yet I could not resist the pull of the secrets that had entangled me. I could feel his presence before I even saw him. My husband's boss emerged from the shadows, his coat brushing against the mist, eyes fixed on me with a quiet intensity that made my heart pound. I wanted to turn away, to retreat into the safety of the life I had always known. But instead, I froze, caught between fear and fascination. His gaze seemed to strip away everything I thought I understood about loyalty, trust, and desire. "You've been thinking about the past," he said, his voice low and steady, "and the choices it forces upon us." There was a weight to his words that made them feel like both a warning and an invitation. I could not read his intentions, and that uncertainty was more thrilling and terrifying than anything I had ever experienced. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "I don't know what you mean," I whispered, though part of me did. The stories of the pirate captain and the 42 prisoners had already seeped into my imagination, and now they haunted every step, every thought. The more I tried to rationalize it, the more entangled I became in the web of mystery and tension he had woven. He took a slow step closer, and the scent of the sea mixed with something darker, more intimate, a subtle reminder of the human attraction that underlay every conversation between us. "Sometimes," he said, "the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it finds the people it wants to test, to challenge, to see what they're truly made of." His eyes held mine with an intensity that made my chest ache and my mind whirl. I wanted to ask what he meant, wanted to demand clarity, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I nodded faintly, a silent acknowledgement that I was willing to risk, to follow the path that had been set before me, even if I didn't know where it would lead. And in that moment, I understood the danger, the thrill, and the complexity of the attraction between us. It was a tension I could neither escape nor resist. Meanwhile, the pirate captain's story continued to echo in my mind. I imagined him plotting, maneuvering, and making impossible choices, each one fraught with danger and consequence. And I realized, with a sudden jolt, that history might not be as distant as I had believed. The vanished prisoners, the hidden treasures, the betrayals that had never been uncovered. They were all pieces of a puzzle that seemed to mirror the choices I faced now. The next day, whispers of the harbor reached my ears. Sailors spoke of strange sightings, ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts, and rumors that the descendants of the pirate captain still held secrets along the coast. I felt the weight of it pressing against me, a reminder that the world I had known was small compared to the currents of danger and intrigue swirling around me. My husband's innocence, my own curiosity, and the quiet intensity of his boss's presence combined to create a tension I could not escape. That evening, the tension came to a head. A sudden storm swept across the coast, dark clouds rolling in, rain pelting the cobblestones, and the wind howling as though warning us to turn back. I found myself once again face to face with him, his figure outlined against the lightning-lit sky, drenched yet unyielding. Every word, every gesture, seemed magnified by the storm. The danger was real, tangible, and yet the connection between us was undeniable. "You're standing on the edge of a choice," he said, his voice almost drowned by the wind. "One that could change everything. Are you ready to see it through?" The intensity of the moment made my heart hammer in my chest. I wanted to answer, to run, to stay, to understand. Every instinct screamed conflicting messages, and I felt the full weight of the unseen forces, history, desire, and danger, pressing down upon me. As the rain fell harder and the sea roared below, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. The threads of the past and present were entwining, pulling me toward a revelation I could not yet name. And yet, even as I felt the suspense building, I knew that the climax was approaching, a moment that would test loyalties, ignite passions, and uncover truths long buried. What would you do if you were standing where I am, caught between love, curiosity, and danger? Would you follow the secrets to the edge, or would you turn away before the storm hits? Comment below. Tell me what choice you would make, or predict the next twist before it comes. The storm is only beginning, and the truth waits just beyond the horizon. The storm had passed, leaving the Carolina coast damp and glimmering under a pale morning sun. but the tension it carried lingered in the air. I had thought the night would mark the height of uncertainty, the edge of danger. Yet somehow, the world had shifted beneath me, and the stakes had grown higher than I could have imagined. Every glance, every heartbeat, reminded me that the story of the pirate captain, the vanished prisoners, and my husband's boss was far from over. That afternoon, I returned home to find a letter slipped under the door. The paper was old, its edges browned and fragile, yet the handwriting was precise and deliberate, as if meant only for me. My hands trembled as I unfolded it, my eyes scanning the words. The message was simple yet chilling. Not everything is as it seems. Trust is the rarest currency. Before I could process it, I heard the soft sound of footsteps in the hallway. My husband appeared, smiling, carrying news of a small festival in town. He had no idea the world had just tilted on its axis for me, that the invisible forces of mystery and desire were circling ever closer. The contrast between his warmth and the tension I carried made my chest ache. Could I keep this secret from him, even as the story hurtled toward something I could not yet name? Later, I sought out his boss under the guise of business curiosity, needing answers even if I knew they might come with danger. He met me near the old lighthouse, a place where the ocean seemed endless and secrets could echo against the rocks. The wind played with his coat, and his eyes held the same sharp, unreadable intensity as before. I received a message, I said cautiously, holding the letter in my hand. Do you know anything about this? His lips curved into a faint, knowing smile, one that made my pulse race. Perhaps, he said slowly, or perhaps it's a warning meant for someone braver than most. His gaze held mine for a long moment, and I felt the magnetic pull between us, the tension of unspoken attraction layered atop the danger of the moment. I wanted to question him further, to demand the truth, but before I could, a shout rang out from the harbor below. I turned, heart leaping, to see a small crowd gathering around a strange figure who had arrived by boat. The man's face was obscured by shadows, but the presence of a messenger from the past was unmistakable. In one hand, he held a chest, old and weathered, and in the other, a bundle of papers sealed with wax. The whispers of pirates, lost prisoners, and hidden treasures that had haunted my thoughts suddenly seemed tangible. The second twist hit me like a wave. This was not just a story. This was real. Someone had carried forward the legacy of the pirate captain, someone connected to the vanished prisoners, and now their arrival threatened to expose secrets I wasn't prepared to face. My pulse quickened, and I realized the stakes had escalated beyond anything I had imagined. As if sensing my thoughts, his boss stepped closer, his hand brushing against mine in a fleeting, electrifying touch. "The choice isn't just yours," he murmured, his voice low enough for only me to hear. "It's ours, and the line between loyalty and desire is thinner than you know." The words sent a shiver down my spine. He was right. The emotional stakes intertwined with the danger made every decision, every glance, and every heartbeat significant. The man with the chest called for silence, and as he opened it, the scent of salt, tar, and something metallic rose to meet us. Inside were fragments of maps, old journals, and objects I couldn't yet name, all linked to the pirate captain who had vanished with 42 prisoners so long ago. It was as if the past had arrived to stand beside us, urging decisions that could change lives, test loyalties, and ignite desires that had been simmering quietly beneath the surface. I realized in that moment that the tension between me and my husband's boss wasn't just about attraction. It was about survival, strategy, and the pull of a story that demanded I participate fully or risk losing everything. My eyes met his, and in that gaze, I saw both challenge and invitation, and I understood that the coming hours would test my courage in ways I had never imagined. What would you do if the past literally arrived at your doorstep, demanding choices that could endanger your life and heart? Would you follow the secrets to their conclusion, or retreat into the safety of the familiar? Comment below and tell me what choice you think will shape the next twist, or predict who holds the true power in this unfolding mystery. The wind had calmed, leaving the Carolina coast bathed in an eerie, golden light as the tide lapped gently against the rocks. I stood at the edge of the harbor, the chest and maps at my feet, my heart racing from the events that had led to this moment. Every secret, every whispered word, every tension-filled glance between my husband's boss and me had come to a point of reckoning. The mysterious figure from the boat stepped forward, finally revealing his face. My breath caught. He was a descendant of the pirate captain, a man whose family had guarded the vanished prisoner's secrets for generations. The maps, the journals, and the chest were all part of a legacy that had been hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to uncover it. "You've been given a choice," he said, voice steady but carrying the weight of history. "The truth can either destroy you or set you free." He gestured toward the papers and maps. I glanced at my husband, who now understood more than he had realized. His eyes a mixture of fear, determination, and trust. I felt the pull between them, the delicate line between loyalty to him and the unspoken attraction to his boss that had simmered through these days. Then the final test came. A secret map indicated a hidden cove where the 42 prisoners had been taken centuries ago. Legend claimed treasures and betrayals alike lay buried there. My husband's boss looked at me, eyes intense, almost pleading. "This is the moment. Will you follow through?" The weight of his hand near mine sent a thrill that was impossible to ignore, yet I knew my decision had consequences far beyond our desires. With a deep breath, I stepped forward, choosing to act. Together, the three of us followed the clues along jagged cliffs and through hidden inlets. Each discovery, each fragment of the captain's past, tied into our own lives more than I could have imagined. Betrayals mirrored old ones, and alliances formed under impossible circumstances. My husband and I relied on each other in ways that cemented trust, while the boss remained a provocative, enigmatic presence, reminding me that desire and danger could coexist in unpredictable ways. Finally, we reached the hidden cove. The chest trembled in my hands as I opened it, revealing not gold or jewels, but the journals and letters of the 42 prisoners. Stories of survival, loyalty, and courage. The truth of the captain's disappearance was far more human than legend had ever suggested. Betrayal had come not from the crew, but from an unexpected ally, someone whose decisions had changed history without the world ever knowing. The realization brought a mixture of relief, sorrow, and awe. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the cove in amber light, I felt the tension between us ease. My husband's hand found mine, grounding me in love and partnership. The boss, observing quietly, gave a slight nod, his unreadable expression softening just enough to hint at respect. The major conflicts were resolved, the pirate captain's secret uncovered, the prisoners' stories revealed, and the emotional tension between loyalty and desire acknowledged. But just as I thought the storm had passed, a final, unexpected twist struck. One of the journals hinted at another hidden location, a clue that had not been discovered, pointing to a treasure far greater than any tangible wealth, a secret that could shift power and trust in ways none of us were prepared for. The discovery left us staring at each other in stunned silence, realizing that while the main conflicts had resolved, the world of intrigue, desire, and danger was far from over. I turned to the audience, heart still pounding, imagining you there, wondering what choices you would have made. Would you have trusted the boss, relied on your spouse, or ventured alone into the unknown? Comment below. Predict what this next hidden secret might reveal, and whose loyalty will be tested when history whispers once more. The sun had finally risen over the Carolina coast, painting the cove in soft golds and pinks, and with it came a quiet sense of closure. The chest of journals, the maps, and the secrets of the 42 prisoners now lay safely in our hands, their stories preserved and honored. My husband and I stood side by side, the tension that had shadowed our days slowly dissolving into a calm understanding. We had faced danger, mystery, and temptation together, and emerged stronger for it. The presence of his boss remained, but it no longer carried the same weight of uncertainty. There was an unspoken acknowledgement between us all. Some things were better left in history, and yet, the lessons they carried could shape the present. The romantic tension that had lingered, charged and thrilling, had settled into a respectful distance, leaving only the appreciation for human connection and the complexities of attraction. We walked back toward the harbor, the waves gently lapping at the rocks as if the sea itself approved of the choices we had made. Every glance, every touch, every shared smile carried the reassurance that we had chosen wisely. Loyalty, courage, and love had guided us through the storm. The pirate captain's story, once a whisper of danger, had now become a testament to survival, trust, and the power of facing the unknown. Even as the main conflicts were resolved, the subtle hints in the journals suggested that history might always hold one more secret, one more challenge to test our resolve. Yet that was the beauty of life, the thrill of romance, and the weight of choices. It never truly ended. It only moved forward with us, wiser and braver. As we stood on the cliffs one last time, watching the sun shimmer across the water, I realized that the most valuable treasures weren't gold or maps. They were courage, love, and trust. My husband's hand in mine felt warmer, steadier, and I knew that together we could face any mystery or danger the world might send our way. What would you have done in our place? Would you have trusted the whispers of the past, or turned away from the unknown? Comment below and share your thoughts. Do you want a sequel to uncover the next hidden secret along the Carolina coast? Your perspective might just inspire the next chapter.